Hey, shalom y'all, it's Fletch. Welcome back to OTH. So today it is an absolute, as the old saying goes, bluebird day here in the American Ozarks. And it is mid-December as I'm recording this, and it is just absolutely gorgeous outside today. So I thought that I would give a go at doing this review outside. So hopefully this works out. So what we're looking at here today are two holsters that are made by Aker, and that's Adam King Echo Romeo, AKER. And the reason why I'm spelling that out for you is so that you can look it up if you want to, because a lot of people haven't heard of Aker, especially just in the concealed carry community. If you are in law enforcement or have been around law enforcement, then chances are that you have probably heard of Aker. They've been making duty gear for peace officers since the 80s. It's just so you kind of have an idea of what their background is and where they're coming from. I was thinking about looking into the idea or concept of trying a different holster. So I said to myself, who carries a gun more than anyone else every day? Because more than likely, whatever they're using is probably going to be pretty comfortable. And so I started looking around, and the gun belt that I had, and I actually did a review of that, was made by Aker. And so I went to them and said, hey, you know, what would you recommend for a CCW holster? And they recommended to me this FlatSider XR. And so here's the 170A and the 168A. And this 168, I'm going to turn it for you the way that it should be, but it's just symmetrical for the beginning. So here we go. So there it's on a flat plane, and there that's on a flat plane as well. And the idea or concept behind that is basically just that they have a little bit different cant to them, but other than that, they are more or less the same holster. These are both Glock 19 holsters. I have used them extensively, so let me show you here on our homestead, and you can see the wear and tear and the places where the leather's been rubbed. And so we have definitely put these holsters through their paces over the months that we've been testing them. And so this definitely isn't, just like a first look review. This is after using these extensively here in our homestead. And guys, bottom line up front, I can tell you, I really, really like these holsters. They are well-made holsters, and they are extremely comfortable. And here is what I'm talking about when I say extremely comfortable. If you look at where this rides on your body, you see how flat that is? So your belt comes through here, goes across here. And so the flatter it is, the less hot spot that it's going to have as it's pressing up against your side, because you want this to be as flat against your body as you can. And it's the same with the 170. See right here, 170A. And it's a GL19, that's for Glock 19. But you can see the same thing. If we hold it up like this, you see how that's flat? That's the purpose of it, the name FlatSider. As I was saying earlier, we have used these holsters significantly around the homestead over the past 6 to 8 months. And I like them both, I really do. The 168A over here, I'd say I like a little bit more. And the reason why is because it has what they call the FBI cant, which just simply means that it has, like a 10 or 20 degree cant on it. You see that right there? And so what that does is it makes the heel of the weapon cant forward, right? Which makes it easier to draw for some. It also makes it easier for some to be able to pull this weapon out if you're sitting down and different things like that. And versus the 170 here, the 170, it's a straight, basically 90-degree, you know, almost perpendicular. Perfectly perpendicular is what I meant to say. And so either way, both of the holsters are very comfortable. One thing that I did find, or for me anyways, in my body shape and what works for me, is that the 168 does a better job of not printing from behind because the heel sticks up. So it doesn't show in the back, it doesn't print in the back as well. However, at times it will print in the front a little bit because it's this part of it sticking forward more. However, for my body type and the way I like to carry, that's a non-issue. So for that reason too, I prefer the 168 over the 170. However, as you can tell, I've used the 170 extensively as well, and I like it as well. But if I had to pick, for me personally, I'd pick the 168. And as you can tell, you know, there's no signs of any ripped stitching on this anywhere. And, you know, it is just, you know, a very well-made holster. And for those of you that might still be, you know, law enforcement officers, they do also make these that have a positive retention snap. You know, for concealed carry, that's not really something that we're concerned about because it's typically under a cover garment, so we don't have those same issues or concerns. As far as the functionality of it, it's a typical compression trigger guard is how your weapon is secured, and I've got this loosened so that you know, the gun comes out, well, fairly easily. Obviously you can make it as tight as you want or as loose as you want, but you know, tighter, generally speaking, you know, for retention, right, is a good thing. That's also why, you know, when you're taught how to draw, that you are taught to, you know, rip, you know, you're yanking in a smooth, swift motion, you're drawing your firearm out of its holster. And as you can see, you know, I didn't dress this up for this review. I was showing you how, you know, how it really looks after, you know, the wear and tear, so to speak, that we've put this holster or holsters through. And other than that, guys, you know, it's your basic holster. One constructive criticism that I might be able to give to Aker Leather as far as this holster goes, is especially for the concealed carry market, is there is right, wrong, or indifferent. There is a mindset out there that says that you must be able to reholster your weapon one-handed without looking. And yeah, as you can see, this has, you know, a nice high sweat break that goes up the back. However, if you are a person such as myself that, you know, as the years have gone on, you've put on a little bit of weight, as this pushes out, it kind of closes a little bit. And so, you know, you really have to get in the habit of finding this, and, you know, with the barrel of the handgun, push it out and then slide it in because it closes a little bit. So the one criticism that I might be able to give Aker on this product, and is that to put some type, anyways, of you know, maybe a metal band or something in there, or some, you know, extra rigid leather, something to help hold this open, so that if you got some Dunlop disease, kind of like I do, that it doesn't close on you just a little bit. Is it something that, as far as I'm concerned, it is not something that would keep me from owning or wearing this holster. You know, it's just a training issue. And not only that, but I think that whole idea of, you know, must have to, you know, reholster one-handed and without looking is kind of going by the wayside, because they're kind of, in research, they're finding that it's causing accidental discharges because people are getting shirts and jackets and different things like that caught up in there. And so now they're teaching people, you know, to not reholster until you know that it's a safe situation, and then to use both of your hands and use one hand to clear any garments before you put your firearm in the holster. So there's something to think about. As far as price goes, both of these holsters run in the $60 to $70 range. You can buy them directly from Aker Leather at akerleather.com, or you can also buy the 168, the one with the FBI cant on the right there, for about $60 Amazon, with Amazon free shipping. If you're wondering what the price is, generally speaking, that's where the pricing comes in on both of these holsters. And again, I really like both holsters. They're very rugged, very well made, and most importantly, they're very comfortable. As someone that has suffered, for many years with back problems, I can tell you that this is a very comfortable holster. It's my go-to holster now. If you guys are familiar with the channel, you know that in the past I have promoted a particular kydex holster that worked really well for me because I'm a big fan of outside the waistband carry. But now these holsters are my go-to holsters for pretty much whatever I'm doing. And one other thing that I can tell you, just from real life use of these, is something that I think you should consider, and that is that as someone that has had back problems, a lot of times, I have to, whether I like it or not, I have to take the gun, the firearm, whatever you want to call it, out of the holster. Because I just can't handle the weight on my waistline anymore, especially since typically you're off balance, right? Your hip set is off because you only have a firearm on one side, it's not on both, and so it causes back pain. Having said that, what I found with that kydex holster and most other kydex holsters is that when I was working on the homestead, that frequently I would bang into things. I mean, you can see how scratched and marred both of these are just from real life work. And what happened with that is it actually cracked the kydex. So, the kydex is strong and rigid, and I had never had any problems with it, but what ended up happening, and I'll kind of show you here with this one, is that with the kydex holster, when you have nothing in it, it crushes, right? And this will crush too, but the difference is it doesn't break this holster if you crush it. So, if you're working on something and you have to lay on the ground to get underneath something, lean up against something, different things like that, right? The kydex holsters will crack and break, and these don't. And for me, that was the primary reason why I wanted to change and switch to a holster like this versus a kydex holster. Plus, these are, in my opinion, more comfortable as well. Okay, YouTube, so here is the 168A mounted on a nice rigid gun belt. This is my Aker gun belt. The forward cant on this makes it easier if you're sitting down, because you can still draw the weapon easier instead of, because the angle that you're at, you rotate your shoulder forward a little bit and you're able to still draw the weapon out, versus if it's clear back here. And so for someone that you're wearing your holster like around the homestead and things like that, you're jumping in and out of vehicles and different things. For me, again, that's another reason why I really like the 168A versus the 170A, is because of that. And it doesn't print as bad, because you can see that the heel is not back here, right? It's up here. And so if I'm going to store something and I bend over a little bit, it's still not going to print at all, or quite as bad. But likewise, occasionally what'll happen is if it's tight, it'll kind of print on the front. And so, if your arm's down, it's not really that big of an issue. Or, obviously if it's an area where you can even open carry, right, it's not a big deal either way. So one second here and I'll show you what the 170A looks like. Okay guys, and here is the 170A. And as I was talking about before, you can see how much further the butt or the heel of the weapon sticks out in the back. So, if you bend over a little bit, there's more of a tendency to see that. Plus, if you're seated, the heel of the weapon is dug into the seat rather than canted forward a little bit, so it does make it easier to get in and out. And like I was saying before, you know, a lot of times I would take the weapon out and just set it down by where I was working or what I was doing, and then, you know, like if I had to run into town or something like that, I could just grab it, put it back in the holster and go. And so it was my, you know, normal regular practice to just leave the holster on, because right, it only takes a second to, you know, put the weapon in or out of the holster, versus taking the whole holster off and putting it back on. Someone may be thinking, well, why don't you just take the holster off and that wouldn't have happened? Well, I just explained that why. Hopefully, when you're working on things and you got to get things done, right, you're not going to, you know, take the time to do all that. It's just, you know, take it out, set it down. When I'm done working in this area, grab it, put it back in, and go on to the next activity. So there's the Model 70. And as you can see, you know, both of them hold the weapon nice and tight, close to your body, just like you want it to be for the best concealment possible. Well, guys, if you have any specific questions about, you know, these Aker FlatSider XR holsters, I will do my best to answer them for you. Again, they're both very well-made holsters and very comfortable. My preference, though, is the 168A over here that has the FBI cant to it. If you guys are in the market for a very well-made, very comfortable outside the waistband holster that's very concealable as well, I highly recommend the Aker FlatSider XR holsters.